Hello and welcome to Dreams of Wings, and welcome to Leeds Bradford Airport, where we have temporarily suspended all passenger operations and we're taking 2 Spitfires up, which should hopefully provide some interest for the locals. But just wanted to mark a particular occasion, really, I guess. About 4 subscribers away from hitting the 1,000 subscribers mark, which is a pretty big deal and means a heck of a lot to me, and I wanted to have a video up and running that really is kind of encapsulates what for me this channel is all about, which is of course the warbirds and specifically Spitfires, although there's other things available on the channel, but you know what I mean. And I think if you're a subscriber and if you've watched a lot of the videos, you kind of know that I holds the Spitfire dearly. So this video really is a great example of the kind of stuff you can get up to flying alongside another A2A Spitfire pilot, AJLUK from the A2A Simulations community. There's always group flights going on over there. You've probably heard me mention it before. If you haven't already, definitely worth checking out the forum and also the Discord. And if you like the idea of flying with other warbirds or GA aircraft, you know, it's not always just warbirds. There's regular multiplayer flights. Definitely worth a look at, and always great fun. So what we're doing here is just taking off, and we're going to fly up over Leeds and then join up and just fly as a 2-ship. We're not looking to enter into any formation flying competitions. This is just a very chilled out flight, 2 Spits heading from Leeds Bradford up through the Lake District and across Galloway and over to Prestwick. In terms of the Spitfires that we're flying, there's a bit of a story there. I'm flying the Silver Spitfire, which was the Spitfire that completed the circumnavigation of the world back in 2019. It's operated by the Bulby Flight Academy. Of course, in real life, the Silver Spitfire Gertie, as she's affectionately known, is a Mark 9. Here we're flying the A2A Simulations Mark 2A, so it's not exactly the same, but it's a Spitfire and it's silver and it just looks beautiful. So that's what I'm flying. Not had her up in the sky for a while. Flying Gilda, her kind of stable mate, which is again is a Mark 2A in the sim, but in real life she's actually a TR9 2-seater and she can take passengers up. But today we've got the beautiful Silver Spitfire. Now AJLUK Andrew, he is flying a Spitfire that's actually of his own making, and I will talk about that a bit more when you can actually see it, because there's quite a story to that. And I think this is one of the fantastic things about what we do here, is that you can take the A2A Spitfire, and there's some incredibly talented people out there, and Andrew is one of them, who can actually put together a repaint. Now that could just be a repaint that you've seen and you like the look of it, or it could have more of a story to it. And you know, in Andrew's case, his particular repaint means a lot to him, and for me, the Silver Spitfire, having been there on the day when she took off and started her voyage and stood next to her and caressed her wingtip, means a lot to me. And it's just wonderful to be able to fly these things in the sim. I should say the Silver Spitfire here is from Blade Runner 900. He was very kind back when I was looking to fly Gertie around the world in the sim to follow the same route as her real world counterpart. I put out a request for anyone to do a Silver Spitfire repaint, and Blade Runner 900 very kindly stepped in and did one for me, which is great. And it's not a private paint, by the way. It is available if you head over to the forum, to the A2A forum. It's in there somewhere. So there we go. There is Andrew's beautiful paint. And what I'm going to do is he's actually put together a very nice kind of description of what it's all about, and so rather than me try and fudge through it, I'm actually going to read what he's written. This is part of a blog. So the Spitfire he's flying is Presentation Spitfire Mark 1A R7201, and she's called Lest We Forget. So these are Andrew's words. I came across R7201 Lest We Forget by accident when searching for the wartime history of another Spitfire, a Mark IIB P8588, named Scarfell due to its Lake District connection. Both aircraft were Presentation Spitfires, and two of the 2,200 presentation aircraft that are known to have existed, including 1,574 Spitfires and 331 Hurricanes, as well as 50 other types of aircraft. The donation of weapons of war goes back centuries, but the concept was resurrected in the Second World War, and a price list was made out: $5,000 for a single-engine fighter, usually a Spitfire but sometimes a Hurricane or other type, and £20,000 for a twin-engine aircraft, and £40,000 for a four-engined aircraft. Now, individuals, businesses and communities were encouraged to donate, fundraise money, and could have a Spitfire inscribed with a name of their choice if the requisite amount was achieved. Now, at the outbreak of war in 1939, the idea caught on, and Buy a Spitfire funds sprang up overnight, encouraged in 1940 by Lord Beaverbrook, when he was appointed by Winston Churchill to run the newly formed Minister of Aircraft Production. Very soon the streets of every village, town and city resounded with the rattle of collecting tins, as well as assorted donations from overseas, from Accrington to Zanzibar, from Scunthorpe to New Zealand, from Iceland, America, Brazil, South Africa and India. Newspapers started funds amongst their readers, urging them to get their Spitfire before a rival newspaper, and a running total with full lists of donors and donations was published each week. Each donor of the £5,000 or multiples of target figure received 2 photographs and a small plaque, very few of which still exist. The funds eventually raised over 8 million, 175 million in today's money. An eclectic range of names appeared, from the obvious to the mysterious. For example, the Dogfighter, W3403, was presented by the Kennel Club, and the Marksman, W3215, by Marks and Spencer. Not to be outdone, Nix 6 Primus, X4921, and Nix 6 Secundus, X4923, were presented by Woolworths, referring to their pre-war policy of nothing in their stores costing over sixpence. I took up R7201's story in the run-up to the Remembrance Day 2020, trying, like so many others, to find particular means to mark the Day of Remembrance during the pandemic and lockdown. I took the project on and created a special repaint for the A2A Spitfire. In doing so, I began unravelling the details of the aircraft history, and so continued to create the various schemes the aircraft wore during her short service career. R7201 was a late Spitfire Mark 1A manufactured in Supermarine's Eastleigh factory, prior to the main production being switched to Castle Bromwich for the introduction of the Mark II. Production number 1499 rolled into the field and took to the air for the first time on the 6th of March 1941. The Mark 1As of the time still had fabric-covered ailerons, and many of the original coach-built handcrafted features of the early pre-assembly line Spitfires. Although the aircraft was built a Mark 1A, it was powered by the Merlin III and capable of being fitted with either the 2-pitch de Havilland propeller or the variable pitch rotor. It most likely flew initially with the de Havilland propeller before being fitted with the rotor by the time it reached an MU or operational squadron. R7201 was also produced under the 175th airframe and equipped with fully hydraulic undercarriage. The manual hand pump for operating the undercarriage was replaced by a hydraulic system driven by a pump mounted in the engine bay. The newer design also included an emergency extension system using a high-pressure CO2 cylinder. With the engine prop and undercarriage advancements, the aircraft could have been very similar to Mark IIA, but sadly not have benefited from the more powerful Merlin 12 and Coffin starter. This Presentation Spitfire's paint scheme would have originally been A pattern, brown, green camo, similar to those aircraft in the Battle of Britain. However, during the early war years, it has been normal for the propeller spinner to be painted black, During late 1940 this was switched to sky, and a thin band of sky was painted around the rear fuselage as an aid to identification. Squadron codes and lettering would have been obviously applied later. The Air Ministry laid down strict rules regarding the representation of the Presentation Spitfire's name, most of which were ignored, and markings tended to follow the whim rather than the rule. At first, any such details were supposedly to be contained in a 9-inch by 6-inch rectangle, although this would obviously be too short for a lengthy name. The early names were in dull yellow script, but this soon gave way to light grey, white and then black. The small rectangle was soon forgotten, and large coats of arms, 2 foot 6 inches, began to appear, transfers being provided by the donor. Some names were even chalked on simply for the benefit of the photographers. Aircraft built at the Castle Bromwich factory could originally be distinguished by their presentation names being in italics, but by 1941 the use of italics had been dropped. Some aircraft had other presentation details added, obliterating the original names, but very few of these names were intact at the end of the war. Sadly, no pictures of R7201 survive indicating how the name was painted. I did, however, find images of comparable aircraft with the same production batch which showed the text in black, so settled with that. On the 8th of March 1941, R7201 transited north by the A2A Air Transport Auxiliary to 45 Maintenance Unit MU at RAF Kinloss, Moray, Scotland, now Kinloss Barracks and previously home to the UK's Nimrod Maritime Reconnaissance Fleet. It was possibly at this time that the aircraft was fitted with its rotol, as well as its essential radios and weaponry. On the 29th of May 1941, Lest We Forget was issued to 123 Squadron, East India Squadron, at RAF Turnhouse, Edinburgh, which is now Edinburgh Airport. She was painted with her squadron letters, X-Ray Echo Alpha. It is this scheme she wears in the duo flight here today. Between May and August 1941, she flew with the Blue Section on numerous combat sorties and patrols defending Edinburgh and the Firth of Forth. In August, the squadron and aircraft moved to RAF Drem near North Berwick. Around this time, the Air Ministry issued instructions that RAF aircraft would be to be repainted in the new green-grey scheme, which is more suitable for the operation environments now being encountered. From the 16th of August 1941, new production aircraft would be painted in the new scheme, and the current operational aircraft would be repainted either on the squadron or at the MU. It's not clear when this took place for R7201, but it could have occurred prior to the squadron being transferred to RAF Castleton in Caithness in September 1941. The squadron provided convoy, coastal patrols and cover for the Royal Navy base at Scapa Flow before being sent to Egypt in April 1942, leaving R7201 behind. R7201 was then sent to RAF Grangemouth near Falkirk and its sister station, RAF Ballardo Bridge near Kinross, where she formed part of 58 OTU, which is an operational training unit. I'm familiar with Ballardo Bridge as I often fly over it in reality. It was the original home of the Scottish Gliding Centre before it moved to the closed by Portmarnock Airfield, where I enjoy flying from in the summer months. Others may also be aware of the name as it hosted Tea in the Park Music Festival for many years. The wartime airfield is still recognisable and there is a microlight flying from the site. R7201 definitely would have been in the grey-green colour scheme by the stage she reached Ballardo, and would have had her squadron letters changed to PQ. It's also unlikely that the name Lest We Forget would still be visible. 580TU trained many pilots, and in particular those of other nationalities including the Free Polish Pilots. Through training there were a number of accidents, and R7201 and 2 of these. The first was not long after arriving at the OTU. Thankfully the damage was repairable and she continued to fly at least for a little longer. The second accident was more serious, and unfortunately the damage was too significant. She was grounded on the 7th of July 1942, became an instruction airframe in Scotland for the remainder of the war. The last recorded record is in 1945, when R7201 appears in an air training service record in Hamble. Clearly she was still a learning and training resource right up to the end of the war. Although the history of the aircraft is not dotted with combat stories and adventure, I've really enjoyed and been inspired by it, and creating the schemes tells its story. It was a forgotten aircraft, and it feels like I've been able to bring it to life again. It also represents not only remembrance in its very name, but also what communities, companies and individuals can achieve together in difficult times. Whether it be the people that funded her in the beginning, the factory workers, the engineers, the test pilots, the ferry pilots, the combat pilots, the ground crews, support staff, instructors, student pilots or cadets, they've all shared and shaped its history, which I think should be appreciated, celebrated and especially remembered. I'm sure more details will come to light over time, but this is for now just the story of one Spitfire with a particular name. The serials of nearly 200 other Presentation Spitfires are unknown, largely because most of the relevant official documentation was scrapped in the early post-war years. The only surviving evidence of a Presentation name may therefore be on a snapshot in an old photograph album, and then sometimes only when examined under a magnifying glass. Perhaps you know of one or seen the photo somewhere. Of all the Spitfires which were presented during the Second World War, only one is known to still be in existence, Mark IIb P8332 Sobang, which is in residence at the Canadian Air War Museum, Ottawa. I do apologise if I pronounced that wrong, by the way. I'm very grateful to have had the opportunity to bring to light the history of R7201, lest we forget, and that she can live on in the virtual world. Well said, Andrew. I think, like I was saying, that's the great thing about this. We have an opportunity to fly this wonderful Spitfire, which is a good, faithful recreation in a home simulator of what the Spitfire is like to fly. A2A also have produced the Bulby Mark IX Spitfire flight model, so they know what they're talking about. And we have an opportunity to fly these Spitfires, and at the same time have a repaint that actually means something and helps to remember all of those who were involved in this time of our history. So I am going to shut up now, and I'm just going to let you enjoy the flight. So thank you for coming along and joining us on this flight. I hope you enjoyed it. Ain't nothing as good as a couple of Spitfires flying around, that's for sure, and it's great fun doing it. So remember, as I said, check out the A2A forums and the Discord if you want to go up and do a similar sort of thing. And thank you to all the subscribers and to you for watching this video, and I'll see you on the channel soon.